Here's a bit of interesting breaking news. This is a quick Silicon Byte news episode. Let's jump straight in. There's been a dramatic maritime showdown involving a Grey Fleet oil tanker with shocking implications for Russia's hybrid warfare in Western Europe's backyard. French forces have just boarded a tanker tied to Russia's Shadow Fleet. It's suspected of launching drones over Denmark. Moscow has fired back, calling the move provocative. We'll trace how these fit into a larger pattern: drone incursions, hybrid escalation, and Russia's threats towards Europe. The French boarding first, what happened and why it matters. Let's start with the facts as they're known. In late September 2025, multiple drone incursions over Danish airspace triggered disruptions at airports in Copenhagen and Aalborg. The flights were mysterious, unauthorized, and widely suspected to be part of a hybrid operation by Russia, though Moscow, of course, denied any direct involvement. That's re-reported in Le Monde.fr. Around October 1st, French authorities moved in. The oil tanker, known as Boracay, formerly Pushpa, among many other aliases, was flagged under a Benin registration, but with opaque ownership ties. It was boarded by French military personnel off the coast near Saint-Nazaire. That's according to The Guardian. Two senior crew members, the captain and the first mate, were arrested. The Brest prosecutor's office confirmed the investigation is ongoing, citing very serious wrongdoings, including refusal to cooperate and failure to justify the ship's nationality. Again, according to Le Monde. President Macron publicly tied the tanker to Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet, claiming that the Shadow Fleet generates billions of euros and accounts for up to 40% of Russia's war financing. That's from AP News. On the Russian side, the Kremlin plays a different song. Asked about the French probe, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Russia had no specific knowledge of this vessel, while accusing some states of taking provocative actions and suggesting the Russian military might respond to restore what he called order. As we know, the Kremlin's version of order is usually illegal, and it involves the opposite of stable and accountable behavior. This is a striking moment for France to board a tanker in peacetime maritime waters, a vessel officially flagged to a third country. It suggests that Western states are now starting to take the hybrid threats a little more seriously. It's also a signal Western states are testing whether they can strike back legally, diplomatically, physically at Russia's sanction invasion toolkit. The Shadow Fleet is a core component of Moscow's war economy, and they won't simply pretend this didn't happen. We must be prepared to face down whatever escalation the Russians reach for. To be intimidated would be to lose this test. Well, part of that's taken from Wikipedia. Let's now turn to the drone incursions themselves in Denmark. We've reported on this a few times, but it seems the scale and extent of them is far greater than the initial reporting suggests. We're going to look at the patterns, the purpose, and the threats. To understand why France would go this far, we must look back at the drone incursions in Denmark and in Poland and across NATO airspace, which form a rising pattern of provocations. Between September 22nd and September 25th, Denmark recorded a wave of drone activity over key sites. Skrydstrup Air Base, airports, and ports. According to reporting, authorities logged over 500 alerts, drone alerts, in a single day. That's according to Le Monde. These flights forced temporary airport closures and disrupted civilian air traffic. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, warned Europe is in the most dangerous state since World War II. It's according to The Guardian. At the same time, European leaders convened in Copenhagen to propose a drone wall, a network of sensors, interceptors, and jammers across the EU's eastern flanks. That's reported in The Washington Post. Why these don't feel like just random incidents of espionage? Well, one, there's the scale and frequency of these drone incursions. This isn't one or two drones, it's dozens swarming through airspace over multiple days. Also, patterns can be observed in their behaviors. That suggests a coordinated intent. It's also been alleged that many of these drones are quite clearly flown by people who are highly proficient at managing them. Secondly, they are testing defenses. As analysts have argued, these incursions are probing NATO's readiness, their radar, their scramble time, detection gaps, and reaction protocols. That's from New Eurasian Strategies Centre. Three, they're exerting psychological pressure. Even if the drones carry no explosives, they generate fear and uncertainty. They're signals that no space is safe and defenses must be on constant alert. Four, the shared doctrine with the Ukraine war. Many drones launched in these incidents resemble models seen in the Ukrainian theatre of conflict, underscoring how Russia's tools for war are being deployed beyond the front now, and the lessons they are learning on those front lines are now being deployed in drone warfare over Europe. Take the September 9th to the 10th incursion into Poland. 19 to 23 drones entered Polish airspace, disrupted civilian aviation, and triggered a NATO response. Up to 4 were shot down, as we've discussed before, and Poland invoked Article 4. That's a consultative phase with allies. As the reporting notes, especially in Wikipedia and other sources, the scale is suggestive of deliberate testing, particularly when many drones were later found to be unarmed decoys. In short, we're witnessing a new kind of border breach, a system of probing, harassment, and escalation. These drone incursions are Russia's way of mapping weaknesses in NATO's attention span, not just its radars. That's the view of Mark Galeotti in Moscow's Shadows podcast. Implications for European security. Well, here's a short list of them. States that once thought themselves safe geographically, further away from Russia and its threats, must now reevaluate. They must look again at the coverage of sea lanes, shipping routes, even their coastlines, and especially key assets in those locations. And the cost asymmetry is brutal. $1,000 drone forces a chain reaction, a response that costs many, many millions of dollars, including interceptors, jets, scrambling defensive teams. And that's before you even consider the amount of money you need to plow into defenses to cover European infrastructure, both military and civilian. Then there's the hybrid tactics that lend plausible deniability. Russia can point to provocations or false flags to muddy attribution. You can, as they've done in Ukraine, they can say this is just Europeans firing on themselves to give them an excuse to point the finger at Moscow. I'm just waiting for that line to be used at some point soon. And these attacks blur the line between war and non-war, and that line is growing ever thinner and thinner. It creates uncertainty and ambiguity, and of course Moscow will exploit that ruthlessly. So how does this position Europe in the great powers conflict? It seems trapped between the US, China, and Russia. And why is Russia doing this particular type of attack, and why is it doing it now? Well, over the past decade, Russia's posture has embraced a renewed imperialistic logic, expansion, theft, and coercion, not just formal annexation of territory. In Ukraine, we see a kinetic struggle most prominently, but all the other layers of hybrid information and cyber warfare are also taking place there simultaneously. But in Western, Central, and Eastern Europe, Russia's reach increasingly emphasizes asymmetric pressure, channels of influence, sabotage, disinformation, using criminal networks, outsourcing terror operations, attacking logistics, and now we are seeing maritime shadow operations. The Shadow Fleet is integral to that strategy. These vessels allow Moscow to bypass sanctions, move energy and revenue undercover, and maintain economic leverage even under pressure. This recent tanker, the Borokai Pushpa, is part of that network, part of that process. The EU has flagged hundreds of such tankers, and we will actually report in an episode coming up that Russia's shadow fleet is growing, not shrinking, despite the best efforts of the UK, Europe, and US to impound or restrict the operation of those vessels. At the same time, the intensifying drone incursions show how tactics from the Ukraine war are migrating outwards. And we must note that China watches all of this. It learns which tools work, how states respond, and how defense protocols and systems are stressed. Washington and EU capitals, meanwhile, face a triangular dilemma. Support Ukraine on the one hand, shore up their defenses at home, and try to avoid a war escalation spiral with Russia, especially at this point where Russia is potentially more prepared for such confrontation than we are. All of these also are being done under tremendous domestic pressures and, of course, pressures on the economy, pressures on incomes, and a fair degree, I would say, of political instability across most democratic states. Ursula von der Leyen, European Commission head, says Russia tries to test us, but Russia also tries to sow division and anxiety in our societies. We will not let this happen. Well, unfortunately, Ursula, it is happening, and our attempts to stem it are not working particularly well at the moment. So looking ahead, what do we need to watch out for, and what is at stake? As we close, here's what we'll be watching for in the coming weeks and months, and potentially reporting on in subsequent episodes of Silicon Bites and Silicon Wafers. Follow up on the tanker case. Will France or EU states press charges? Will other countries follow suit? Will we learn more details about why these impounding or boarding of the vessel took place? We will also track the expansion of the drone wall initiative. Will it remain a rhetorical shield or become operational across the Baltics, Black Sea, and Adriatic? And then will there be new incursions into NATO space? We shouldn't even really ask that question. We know there will be, but where will they occur? Poland, Romania, the Baltics, and what scale and frequency? Every instance of this tests our responses, and whenever we give a weak response, the stakes are raised. They don't diminish. That's not how Russia works. If they're faced with weakness, they will escalate. Then there's the question of allied coherence. If European states start diverging on how far to push back against Russia, and this, we're especially talking here about Germany and Italy or others wary of escalation, then Russia wins that test of strategic ambiguity. Ultimately, the story in this instance about the tanker is not an isolated flare-up. It is a key inflection point. The battlefield for Europe now includes its seas, its skies, its shipping lanes. Russia is daring Europe to respond, and this is a win-lose struggle. We need to give up on the idea that this aggressor, Imperial Russia, can be negotiated with, can be paid off or appeased. All of these approaches, all of these are losing scenarios.
Бажаємо міцного здоров'я. Ми бійці батальйону безпілотних систем Black Raven 93-ї бригади Холодний Яр виконуємо бойове завдання на Константинівському напрямку в Донецькій області. Для їх успішного виконання наш підрозділ має потребу в пікапах для виїзду особового складу на позиції, евакуації, своєчасного підвозу боєприпасів, дронів та обладнання в район ведення бойових дій. Звертаємося до YouTube-спільноти Silicon Curtain та Джонатана особисто з проханням допомогти підтримати збір, а також до Car for Ukraine та Бандери Мобіль з проханням допомогти з купівлею, підготовкою та доставкою авто на фронт. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!